Good evening and welcome to our Wednesday evening service. We're glad that you're with us. Today we have a special guest. Her name's Debbie Mellberg, and she's from Mexico. It's so good to have you tonight with our services, tonight, Mrs. Mellberg. Thank you so much for joining us.
You could just call me Debbie, and I am so glad to be here. We've been friends for a long time, and Liberty has had a vital part in the ministry in Mexico. I can't wait to share some stories.
Now, I came on in 2008 here at Liberty, and I think that the church has been supporting you far more since
much longer, since 1979.
1979.
I don't think you were born yet.
It's right around the corner from there, but that's incredible. So probably one of the first missionaries that Liberty picked up was you and your husband Kurt. And so tell us a little bit about that real quick before we jump into a few questions that we have for you.
I love stories, and I could tell them forever. So you probably need to cut me off before I get too carried away with this. But it's a crazy thing that happened. We were already on the field in Mexico, but the law in Mexico was that we could only have a visa or a passport or permission to be in Mexico at 6 months at a time. So every 6 months we had to do a pilgrimage back to the border to renew our visas. And in 1979, December, actually, we went back to Phoenix, and a friend of ours from our sending church in Phoenix, which is still the same sending church with a different name, she had fallen, and we heard that she went to Las Vegas, where she had come from prior to her salvation.
Okay.
We loved her so much. Her name is Stephanie. I won't say anything more than that, but we wanted so much to have an opportunity to reach out to Stephanie and see if we can help to restore her to her walk with Christ.
Sure.
And so Kurt got the bright idea to call Pastor Dave, who he had been at Liberty University with my sister and brother. So there was a connection there, but we did not know Pastor Dave at all. Anyway, he called him and he said, "This is a crazy request I have, and feel free to say no, but it's a chance that I might have." And so he told the whole story I just told you. And he said, "I want an excuse to come to Las Vegas. I think Stephanie would come meet with us if we were going to be in Las Vegas." He said, and he said, "I don't want any support. I don't want a love offering. I want nothing from you except the opportunity to share our field in your church so that I could have the opportunity to share with Stephanie." And so Pastor Dave, oh my goodness, that was like saying sick him to a dog, because he loves things like that. And he said, "This is the strangest request I think I've ever gotten from a missionary. Come on over." So we hopped in the car. I don't know if it was the next weekend or what the time frame was exactly, but it was short because we had to be back in Mexico. And as it turned out, it's the biggest snowstorm. I think maybe this year might have been different, but the biggest snowstorm on record, I think, in Las Vegas ever. So we came crawling into the dance theater just the second before the services were supposed to start in this crazy snowstorm. Everything against this meeting, but it was a divine appointment. And long story short, we gave our presentation. We went out with Stephanie afterwards, and we had the opportunity, which she rejected, unfortunately, but it's not that we didn't try. Meanwhile, Pastor Dave said, "This is the kind of missionaries that this church wants to be involved with. Who wouldn't want to be involved with somebody reaching out to people?" Anyway, long story, but kind of short now. That's when Liberty decided that we would be part of your missions family.
That's exciting. And, that really has been the heartbeat of our ministry is souls, reaching people and things like that. And so I wanted to ask you specifically, now you've been a missionary to Mexico. Was it there? You said, what year was it? Was it 79?
We went in 1975, in December of 1975 to language school.
Okay. So a few years before that. So what led you to the steps to the ministry you're at? How did God lead you specifically to Mexico? Are people, obviously God's leading and working in your life, and we're trying to understand how God's working in our life. So how did God kind of lead you to that ministry?
Well, I happen to have a few little pictures I'd like to share with you, and I'm going to try to jump on. Let's see how this works. I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully it won't be too complicated. So this is when we left for Mexico, 1975. That's 45 years ago in December.
Okay.
And just recently, I was in a boat on the way up to a mountain village of Zapote de Picachos to celebrate an anniversary celebration of that particular Huichol church. And as I was in the boat, my mind was I love stories, and my mind was toggling in and out of the story about, I think you've probably all heard of the end of the spear, of the 5 American fantastic men that had given their lives. They're successful and they were determined. They were going to give their lives to reach out to the tribe in Ecuador. At the time they were called the Aucas. And anyway, the story, to make it quick, is they had made contact. They had done a lot of stuff. And today was going to be the day that they were going to land in next to the river and begin the actual ministry face to face with the people. And we all know, those of us who know that story, know that within minutes after landing, they all had Aka spears in their hearts, and that was the end. And the whole world was stunned, and we were stunned. At that time, Kurt was in junior high and I was in grade school, and it was horrible. But word of their deaths flashed all around the world and reached boys and girls like Kurt and me. And all we could think was poor Jim Elliott and his friends. So much potential. What a waste. Why would they do that with their lives? Well, we know shortly after that, Jim Elliott's widow and Nate Saint's sister, another of the 5 guys, moved back into the tribe. And before long, almost the entire tribe came to believe in Jesus. In fact, Nate Saint's son, when he was 16, went back to that very river and was baptized by the evil tribe person that had killed his own father. I mean, it's kind of a miraculous story. But that wasn't the only impact of that story. That impact reached people around the world, including, especially in my case, Kurt, who determined after hearing that, that's what I want to do. I don't really necessarily want to be a martyr, but I want to give my life to reach somebody. Jim Elliott said, he is no fool who gives what he cannot keep to gain what he cannot lose. And Kurt said, I want to give what I can't keep to gain what I cannot lose. And that was his choice. So God used that story to call him directly, and me by marrying him indirectly, to give what we couldn't keep.
The last question I wanted to ask you is this. What's one of the greatest things that you've been able to be a part of, or have a part of, on the mission field?
Well, one of the greatest things lately, and this isn't something that I had planned to share, I did plan to share it, but one of the greatest things that I've been able to be involved in is the translation of the Old Testament of the Huichol Bible. They had the New Testament. Jose Lopez, who came to Christ, was led to Christ by the original Roman, who I mentioned earlier, and Kurt discipled him. He mentored him, taught him to read. They taught him to read. Anyway, he came to Kurt just before Kurt went to heaven, and he said, Kurt, he said missionary. They could never say Kurt's name. Anyway, he said missionary. He said, what is it that Jesus is saying that the scriptures say? He's quoting the scriptures. We all know that they didn't have the New Testament when Jesus lived. It's about him. Wow, that's reading for content, right? So Kurt says, well, he said, what do you think it is? He says, is that what they call the Old Testament? And Kurt says, it sure is. He says, we don't have it. Kurt says, no, you don't. He said, we want it. It was important to Jesus. It's important to us. So 12 years, the last 12 years have been spent with an amazing team. This is a team of translators who started 12 years ago to translate the Old Testament into Huichol. Jose is the older guy toward the left-hand side of our screen. And he's the one that told, before Kurt went to heaven, lots of things had to happen. So this worked out, financing and all kinds of things had to happen. The original translator was involved. You see him right here with Jose working on the translation process. And just the month before COVID sprung loose, we sent the digital files off to South Korea across the world to be printed and bound and shipped back via freighter to Mexico. Overland. This is in my living room, the picture of the entire Bible in the Huichol language. And here's Jose. That's one of the coolest things that has happened lately.
I'm getting goosebumps as you're telling me this. I mean,
there's hundreds more. There are hundreds more. I wish I had time to share.
Oh my goodness. I love your story. It's so neat. The last thing that we want to do is we want to be able to, our pastor is going to pray tonight for the services. And we want to see if there are some specific requests, maybe 1 or 2 that you have that we can pray specifically for you or your ministry there about.
Absolutely. I mean, we can always use all the prayer we can get. And that's something that Liberty has been so vital in. Thank you so much for your vital part in the ministry in Mexico. Honestly, what has God done? He has partnered us with people like the people from Liberty who have been so generous and so sacrificial and so loving. And I'm so grateful for that. Some prayers. Okay, COVID, that's no surprise. It's hit Mexico big time. Here, Some people get stimulus checks. There's no such thing in Mexico, obviously. So our church has had the opportunity to show what a church really is. It's not a place you go and sit.
Right.
It's something you do, right? It's
Yeah.
a place where you teach people to reach out to follow, and to believe in Jesus. And the church has rallied to the cause. We can't have, finally, the government is allowing 25% occupancy, so we can just now begin having services. The crazy kids took some of the equipment that we used for recording the Huichol Bible, and somehow they finagled it so that we can be live streaming. So this Sunday will be our 55th live streamed service
Oh, wow.
from the Tepic Church, that's amazing in itself. That's an expensive thing to do, but it didn't cost us anything. So they're cool kids. It's amazing. The new generation, the second generation of believers, stand back. I can't imagine what's going to happen. But anyway, the prayers that God would continue to work in the lives of the new believers who have added themselves to the Tepic Church, even though they haven't even been able to attend, that God would help us to disciple them, and that they would become effective ministers, also as servants of God. Apart from that, wisdom as to when I should go back to Mexico. I have been in the States for a year now, actually, since my grandson David, it's a long story, I won't get into that, but I agreed to help out with his bone marrow transplant. And as soon as I got across the border, the door closed behind me and I couldn't get back in. So I decided I would use the time while I was here to help out with some homeschooling needs with some of my grandkids, which has been an opportunity to reach out in ways I never expected either. So that's cool. But that God will give me wisdom. My plan is to go back as soon as the school year is over. That's the end of May. So I'm going back to Tepic, and that God would work things out that will be possible. I don't expect any problems with that, but that he'll give me wisdom in that. The day before Easter, 18 Huichol people were baptized from Yacuamama, from Vizcarra, from Los Pinitos, and from Guasima del Caimán. There were 18 new believers that came together to be baptized. So that God would also help the Huichol believers to come alongside and disciple them and mentor them. They're amazing, amazing workers, and they love sharing the gospel. So that I would love prayer for them too.
Absolutely. We'll pray for the Huichol people as well. So, man, what an exciting ministry to be a part of. Thank you so much for allowing us to be able to kind of take a sneak peek into your life, but also the ministry there in Tepic. And thank you so much for your time today and allowing us to be able to share this interview with our people. And so we are very grateful for your ministry.
Thank you so much, Pastor Neil.
Supporting Debbie and Kurt Mellberg in Mexico has been one of the most fruitful ministries that we have seen. It definitely outlines a faithful minister of God. Debbie, it was great talking with her, but tonight, let's pray for her specifically with the ways that she's given us to be able to be a best help to her as we see God do a great work in Mexico.